Welcome back to Good Money. I'm Tanya Rivero in New York, and I'm joined by Ellie Kay, America's family personal finance expert, as well as author of The Little Book of Big Savings. Before the break, we discussed how to maximize our refunds this tax season, and in this segment, we're going to ask Ellie to answer some of the viewer questions from our mailbag. All right, Ellie, here we go. The first question comes from Marnie of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. How do I know if it's worth it for me to continue working part-time? Am I putting my family in a higher tax bracket because of my part-time work, and where do I find this so-called tax bracket? Sure, we hear a lot about tax brackets, but maybe we don't know what they are exactly.
Well, basically, that's a good question, and I'm really glad that she asked it because there's a lot of people in that category. I developed a chart that involves a lot of expenses with that second income. A lot of times what we're talking about here is moms that are working part-time. They want to know where they should stay at home, where they should work full-time. If you go to irs.gov and you enter in tax brackets, it will bring up the brackets so that you can find out exactly where you fall and where that next tax bracket is, where you're taxed at a much higher level of taxes. And in some cases, it's actually cheaper for the stay-at-home mom or the stay-at-home dad to stay at home because it may not be worth it. So it's worth investigating. If you email me at elliek.com, I can send you that chart and you can crunch your own numbers.
Absolutely. Not to mention the extra cost in childcare, right, Ellie? But that's another segment.
Yes, that's part of the chart. Yeah, it is.
All right. Now here's a question from Brenda of San Antonio, Texas. How do I know if I can itemize, and how do I get the right values of things I donate to nonprofit organizations? That's a very good question because a lot of people may not realize that I think the IRS has been cracking down on those lately, on those non-itemized donations.
Well, that's true, and that's why it's very important to keep a very good record of all the items that you donate. Basically, you can itemize if you have more than the standard deduction, and the standard deduction depends on whether you're filing a single or married filing separately. That's $5,700. If you're filing jointly, married filing jointly, it's $11,400. And if you're filing as head of household, it's $8,350. So you'll file a Schedule C on that if your deductions are more than that. And one of the things that you need to keep in mind is to assessing value to items. It's the fair market value. So if you have a used item that you're donating to Goodwill or Salvation Army or someplace like that, it's basically the price that you would get at a thrift store or a consignment store. Not as cheap as you might get as a garage sale, but you value it accordingly. And then my other recommendation is that you make a list of everything that you're donating. You have the value next to it. And if you're ever audited, then you're going to be prepared in that way.
Absolutely. All right. Next question comes from Tanya of Maitland, Florida, and she'd like to know, what is better for a college student? File a separate return or file as a dependent under the parents? Notice she doesn't ask what's better for the parents. What's better for the student?
That's right. What's better for the poor college student? How should they file? Well, if she earned money last year, she might have to file her own return. And it depends on a number of factors, whether she is filing, whether her parents are claiming her as a deduction or whether she's going to claim her own deduction and get money back. Now, we have 3 students in college right now, and we're taking a couple of those deductions, but one is taking their own deduction because it's going to be better off for everyone if he takes that deduction and maximizes his benefit. If you actually want to look through what the benefits are, you could go to a free tax program such as taxact.com, and they can actually ask you questions. You can kind of walk through to see what's going to be best, hopefully for the parents and for the college student.
Right. We want to maximize that for everyone involved. All right. Ashley would like you to answer a question, and she writes in asking what new laws have been passed that we need to know about for filing our taxes if unemployment made up the majority of our income. I am a single parent of 2 children, and I didn't have taxes taken out of my unemployment. Probably a lot of people in that situation, Ellie.
Well, there are a lot of people in that situation. There's good news for Ashley and other people that are in the similar situation with unemployment. It used to be that all of unemployment was taxed, but now only a certain portion is taxed up to the first $2,340, I believe it is, and beyond that, then there's an exemption for that. So that part is not taxed at all. So that's going to be really helpful. That's part of the American Recovery Reinvestment Act. And once again, this is something that is kind of a nuance, and it's part of the complicated, so I do recommend that you go line by line with a software program that can actually help you walk through that and ask you all the right questions about exactly how much you're making so you can get every benefit.
All right, thanks for that information for Ashley. Jennifer of San Diego, California writes in, I own a small business and the tax return can get a bit complicated. Do you recommend that I use a CPA, or is there software that you would use yourself that can help me do it myself? Well, we talked a little bit about doing it yourself. Is there some software in particular you recommend?
Well, yes, there is. And actually, what I have been looking at lately for my own business is taxact.com. There is a paid deluxe edition that I'm using because I itemize, and there's other things that aren't available on the free federal edition. But I do recommend that people try to do it yourself first. Last year, I paid between $300 and $400 for my accountant. This year, I've got this new software program that I'm working through, and I'm going to be able to save that much money by doing it through a much more affordable version of that. And of course, those people that are doing either a simple or complex return, try to do it yourself first, walk through it, see if it's working for you, and don't be afraid, because really these days software is sophisticated enough to be able to take advantage of the new tax laws, and if it's free especially, you're going to be saving a lot of money, and that can really help.
All right, Ellie, thank you so very much for all your insights. And if you have any questions for Ellie or anyone on Good Money's team of personal finance experts, you can go to our website, abcnews.com/business. Ask us your questions. We'll do our very best to answer them right here on Good Money.